Welcome to the MLB Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guys Mo and Nawara in the Midwest, and we got Nate Weitzer on the East Coast, and we are looking at a full nighttime slate here on a Tuesday night. Plenty to choose from for you guys. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Continue to follow along with us as we are bringing you these videos each and every weekday of this regular season. Also want you to head to thelines.com. Got plenty of great content on there all summer long as we are also headed into this fall. Also want you to use that great odds checker tool we have on there. Make sure you are shopping those lines to the best of your ability throughout this MLB regular season. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to ftpicks.com or dkpicks.com. Find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for this Tuesday night here, guys. Starting with the Atlanta Braves in Pittsburgh, we got Max Fried on the mound taking on JD Brubaker at home, minus 265 for Fried and the Braves. We also have the Subway Series, Taijuan Walker and the Mets taking on Frankie Montas and the Yankees, minus 130 for the Yanks at home. The Reds and Nick Lodolo are taking on the Phillies and Ranger Suarez in Philadelphia, minus 205 for those Phils at home. The White Sox and Dylan Cease are taking on Baltimore and Austin Voth in Baltimore, minus 135 for the Sox there. The Giants and Carlos Rodon taking on the Tigers. Drew Hutchison, minus 215 for the visiting Giants. Jose Suarez and the Angels are in Tampa Bay taking on Corey Kluber, minus 175 for the Rays at home. Ross Stripling and the Blue Jays are in Boston taking on Josh Winkowski and the Sox, minus 145 in a game that we are going to cover here in a minute. The Cardinals and Jake Woodford are taking on the Cubs in Chicago. Adrian Sampson on the mound there for the Cubs, minus 130 for the Cardinals on the road. The Twins and Aaron Sanchez are taking on Houston and Justin Verlander in Houston, minus 300 for the ageless Verlander and the Stros. Zach Davies and the Diamondbacks are in Kansas City taking on Jonathan Heasley and the Royals, minus 120 for the D-backs on the road. Dane Dunning and the Rangers are in Colorado taking on German Marquez, minus 120 for the Rockies at home. The Guardians and Aaron Saval are in San Diego taking on Mike Clevenger and those Padres, minus 145 for the Pods at home. Pablo Lopez and the Marlins, minus 140 in Oakland taking on Zach Logue, minus 140 for Pablo and those Marlins. The Brewers and Corbin Burns are in LA taking on Tony Gonsolin and the Dodgers, minus 145 for the Doyers at home. And finishing off the night is Washington in Seattle. We've got Eric Fetty on the mound against Robbie Ray and those Mariners, minus 265, big favorites for the M's at home. Let's kick things off here with that AL East, Nate, and I will toss it to you as it is your hometown team there, Boston. Total of 9.5 runs, minus 142 for the Blue Jays on the road. So where do you start with this one, what you're looking at?
I start with the Red Sox staff being abysmal and Josh Winkowski being a fringe MLB starter, one of several that they've had to throw out there lately, and facing a Blue Jays lineup that's been down lately, but George Springer pinch hit last night. It's possible he's ready to go here as a starter. The Blue Jays still on the season, obviously a very talented and impressive lineup, and they've crushed the Red Sox. I believe they're 11-3 now this season against the Sox. Huge discrepancy in the bullpen too when you look at it recently. Toronto's fourth best bullpen ERA last 2 weeks. Red Sox, the worst bullpen ERA in the majors over a 30-day span. So backing up Winkowski, who, just got shelled by the Pirates. We were talking about that on a short slate as a potential betting option. Couldn't get the Pirates to chase on anything. Gave up 90 exit velocity. Previous start, he had two starts before, 25% barrel rate against the Royals. That's another alarming stat against a bad offensive team. Again, he's depending on those ground balls. Blue Jays, not really a team that are going to burn a lot of worms here at Fenway. I would be looking at their team total potentially. Winkowski, Cutter Crawford, these guys have both just gotten lit up lately. And Ross Stripling for the Jays has been a lot more reliable this year. He really cut down the homers, the walks, throwing his change a lot more, the fastball and slider rate positively. And Boston in the last 14 days, -5 rating against the changeup. That's one of the worst in the majors as they're struggling to lay off pitches. So I've seen it fluctuate from -140 up to -160 and now back. So I think if you can get it in that -140 range, you should be all over Toronto here. They have advantages all over the place.
I had a little bit of a higher threshold for Toronto here. There was one I'm checking right now with our odds checker tool. There was one 135 this morning. Yeah, I'm seeing still a 135 at MGM, another 134 if you have Bet Rivers. I think that's about where I would consider making a play on Toronto. Like you said, Winkowski's been pretty bad. His estimators are around 5. Really, also like you said, you nailed it when you said just can't get anybody to chase. I mean, 23.4% chase rate. That's as bad as it gets, really. What's interesting about him, though, is his minor league numbers were actually really good and pretty encouraging. So I actually thought the transition would be a little better for him. He wasn't a bad prospect either. So it's kind of weird that he doesn't have stuff to make MLB hitters swing and miss, I guess. I mean, he is kind of looking to get more grounders, like pretty sinker heavy. Toronto does hit right-handed sinkers and sliders very well, which is kind of surprising since they're like all right-handed. But on the other hand, they do hit a lot of grounders. Winkowski is a big splits guy. He's actually been pretty good. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say good. He's been okay against right-handed batters, 4.38 FIP so far. But man, he can't get any lefties out at all. So in some ways, this looks like a good matchup for him. In some ways, it looks like a bad matchup. I think I had the Jays close to like minus 150 here. I think around minus 135, I would consider them for a play. It's not something I've got in my account yet, but worth a look if you get a good price there. I would say slightest of leans to Toronto at the consensus market price, though. I'm with you there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to move us on here to a game that I think is going to be a pretty good pitching matchup, to be honest with you, although I do like the White Sox in this one. We've got Chicago in Baltimore here with the White Sox coming alive, really, with their bats as of late. I mean, obviously, these are two teams that are having much different seasons in terms of the expectations before they started. But I think this is a good moment for those White Sox. We got a bunch of offensive guys on offense, really picking things up for them, especially over the last roughly month or so of the season. That WRC plus has gone way up for them as well. So you feel pretty good about that. Dylan Cease also pitching super well right now. I believe he's only given up 1 run or fewer in his last 14 starts. That was before his last one, but still really in a hot rate with him right now, as he's definitely started to up sort of the amount of sliders that he's used. Definitely at the expense of some of the other pitches, but I think it's definitely been working for him over like I said, the last couple of months, especially, and those last 14 starts have been super impressive. I think it's a pretty good matchup here for those White Sox. So kick us off here, Mo. I know that you don't hate Austin Voth, someone I have not yet seen pitch at all, but I will trust you in the numbers. He doesn't have the greatest projections coming into this one, to be honest. But let me know what you think about this one, where you start with that White Sox-Orioles matchup.
Yeah, Voth's projections are pretty poor, and I had him rated as very bad like a month ago. But I mean, he just keeps killing it. And then I'm looking at his splits. There's 2 splits I think that are really, really promising for him in this matchup. For one thing, he's got a big handedness split. Really, it doesn't look that big when you look at like his WOBA allowed, but then if you look at his strikeout and walk numbers, it is very, very stark. 27% K rate, 7% walk rate against right-handed batters in his career. So a differential of about 20%, that's pretty great. And the differential is 7% against lefties, so that's pretty bad. But, we know the White Sox are very heavy right-handed, even lacking Yasmani Grandal, who went on the IL, I think, a day or two ago. I'm only seeing Gavin Sheets as the only lefty, and I guess Yohan Moncada as well in the projected lineup. So that's very good for him. And then the more interesting split he has is, I've touched on this once or twice before, I think, but he's actually been pretty good as a starter and pretty terrible as a reliever in his career. 316 WOBA allowed as a starter, 371 as a reliever. So he's been it's supposed to be the opposite. They're supposed to perform better in relief. It's very, very weird. This year, it's been even crazier. He has a 268 WOBA allowed as a starter, only 42 innings, but I mean, just a massive, massive difference there. So I think we know Cease is probably going to dominate this lineup, and I think Voth is probably better than the projections think. So I'm a little bit interested in under 7.5 here.
Yeah, well, if Cease is going to dominate, I mean, he is still leading the majors in K/9 ratio. You can get that player performance double at FanDuel, 8+ Ks and a win at plus 260. I just think you're getting some excellent juice here for the White Sox to hang on to one here. The biggest cause for concern is that bullpen, 6.6 ERA in the last 2 weeks, whereas the Orioles bullpen's been pretty fantastic lately. They will have to lean on them since Voth is still not going very long here as a converted reliever. I will say his ERA at home, 5.2, 306 batting average against, Camden Yards is a bit hitter friendly, but the White Sox, still kind of banged up. I would just, lean on Cease here in terms of betting the White Sox first half, even money for them to be up a run after the first half here. You don't think Cease is really going to give up much at all, so either trying to pair it together with him to get some extra juice with those Ks, or just banking on him holding them to one or fewer through 6 innings, because like Josh said, he's been a machine doing that.
For sure, yep. And I'm going to move us on here, guys, to our last game, one that doesn't quite have this a pitching matchup that I think we're looking forward to. We're talking about the Marlins and the A's here. Pablo Lopez on the mound against Zach Logue, and really, it's Pablo Lopez has not been himself, but he has not been as bad as Zach Logue has been, and I think that's really what we're banking on here is those athletics and really the storylines that are surrounding them right now. Don't even really have anything to do with baseball. Do the A's as they continue to really be an easy pick'em team to pick against, rather. So Nate, start us off here with this one, and I know, like we said, Pablo Lopez has not been himself as of late, especially most of this season, but Zach Logue has been much worse. Are you considering an over here, or is this mostly just continuing to take advantage of an athletics team that really is trotting out double and triple A baseball players?
Yeah, I'm not really interested in an over with this Marlins offense either. Me and Mo hit on this matchup yesterday with Eduard Cabrera, and turned out to be a 3-0 win. And I mean, so even with Zach Logue, who basically has the same kind of numbers as Adam Oller, another kind of crap rookie that the A's are throwing out there, his barrel rate 4% higher than his swinging strike rate, which has actually been even worse in his last 5%, and about 91% Z contact. So just getting lit up when he's in the zone. And the Marlins are getting a few more bats in there. I think we pointed at the reason some of their offensive splits have been so terrible is because they've faced nothing but great teams in 4 straight series here, and now they get the A's. And it's, Lopez, I mean, maybe Mo can dive into it more. It is kind of strange. His numbers have fluctuated so much. It looks like he's been experimenting with a cutter maybe a little too much, but he's got the stuff to navigate this lineup. I mean, you talk about those last 4 series being against tough opponents. Most of his struggles have come against Mets, Braves, Padres, teams of that quality, not the Athletics. So I think it's the same kind of theory, bet the Marlins while they're down. Well, the market's down on them because who they've been facing, but they clearly have the advantage here on the mound and probably with the bats as well.
Yeah, we know this A starter, Zach Logue, he's terrible. You don't get too much worse than 22.6% called strike plus whiff rate. That's just atrocious. On the other hand, the Fish we know they're terrible against lefties, but man, this guy's so bad. I think they can at least hit. I mean, he's been getting whacked in minor league baseball this year as a 26-year-old. I mean, that's just a terrible sign there. But yeah, definitely the more interesting look is at Pablo Lopez. He seems like he's kind of losing trust in his fastball change combination, which has kind of been his bread and butter. And he's been throwing more sinkers and curves, which is really weird. And you would say that would be terrible most of the time, but his curve has been his worst pitch in his career, but it's actually been his best pitch this year. So just a lot of weird things going on here. And the opposite for the sinker. It's been good in his career, but it's been atrocious this year. So the other thing that's weird about going away from his fastball is he's throwing it harder than he's thrown it all season. He's up to like 94, 90, I think maybe even close to 95 in some recent outings. Yeah, 94.7 he had, which is, he spent most of the season throwing 92 and dominating. So you would think in theory he'd be peaking right now when you look at these velocity numbers. overall, his season numbers, I mean, he's still getting above average chases, above average swinging strikes. I still expect him to succeed. And when I'm seeing some minus 140s out there, to me, that's still very playable. It's up to minus 154 at FanDuel this morning. I think that's about where the line should be. So, yeah, I just think that is correct. And the rest of the market, I think, has the value on the Marlins. I got closer to minus 130 last night, but I still think there's a little bit of room to play it this morning.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some good stuff to choose from tonight as we got that pretty full slate. Just one day game. Obviously, it's a Tuesday, so we are looking into plenty of action for tonight, and that is all the time that we have for you. So make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Continue to follow along with us as we will be bringing you these videos each and every weekday of this regular season. So until we see you next, happy betting.